Thanks for joining METROspectives. I'm Alex Roman, executive editor for Metro Magazine, and my guest today is Steve Lassey, CEO at Strat360. Steve, thanks for joining me. How's it going?
Oh, it's going great, Alex. Thank you so much.
Great, great. I really appreciate you taking the time and talking a little bit about Strata 360 and kind of the industry as a whole. And I wanted to start a little bit for those who may not be familiar with you or your company. If you could talk a little bit about your background and what it is that Strata 360 does.
Yeah, well, I've spent a lot of years in the transit business as a CEO for a transit agency for a good 5 years or so, and a lot of experience before that. And since I left the industry a few years ago, I always felt that we still had something to give, myself and some of my colleagues who'd worked with me in the business. So we got together and we formed Strata 360 in 2018. And since then, we've been developing solutions and providing services to transit agencies around the area of data integration and showing them the value of unlocking their transit data and helping them develop new solutions, new processes, increasing the value of customer information and sharing data inside the organization for better performance, better results. Um, we've had some success, and we are looking to further advance our products and our solutions in the industry, and just wanted to talk about them for a little while.
Yeah, and I think bringing that public sector knowledge, how do you feel like your public sector knowledge applies to now the being in the private sector?
Well, I was in the private sector before, so I'm fully
Okay,
accustomed to that
right.
environment. But nonetheless, it's different when it's your own business, of course. And
Mhm.
it's been challenging. The COVID epidemic was challenging for everybody. But we've survived, we pulled through, and we're doing very well. And we want to share our knowledge, share our products with the world, and make sure that they know who we are, where we are, and what we do.
And talking a little bit about Strata 360, working in the public and private, sector transportation projects,
Mhm.
how does that perspective kind of help the company identify solutions or partnerships that agencies might otherwise overlook?
Well, I think with that background in municipal organizations that support transit systems, we've learned a lot about how the organization works, how the business works, and I think that's a key value add for our company is that we have this extensive background that we've gained over 10, 20, 30 years of experience, more so if you combine all of us together.
Mhm.
And we found that we've developed a great methodology, a very fast way to respond to customers' issues. So we don't spend a year thinking about it and then give you the answer.
Mhm.
We're typically 2, 3 months to get active in an organization, and we get them up and running quickly so that we can show them the value and the results of the work that we do. Uh,
And what
uh,
are some common gaps you see between transit vision plans and kind of operational realities?
well, I think that the all of these agencies know the business and they know what to do, but sometimes they're limited by the way that their technology has grown over the years. I think that a lot of transit agencies have some legacy system issues, and they always seem to use, and this is not incorrect, the best of breed in terms of vendors for their traditional activities like scheduling, planning, fleet maintenance, transit operations. There are all big vendors in that space. But the issue is that a lot of the data that's contained within these disparate systems is not available for analysis on a big picture, a broad basis across the operation and the company, and a lot of insights and possible actions to increase the performance of their system is hidden within those data silos. And
Mhm.
our prime task is to release those data, how can I say, data warehouses and put them into a larger data structure that we construct and format in the GTFS standard, and then are able to use our analytic tools to query the data and use natural language to pull out the insights that they're looking for.
Mm,
They may want to say, show me all of our buses that are running late. And let's try and find out why that happens. Is it a schedule problem? Is it a traffic problem? What is it? And that way you can then try to drill down on individual problems within your transit infrastructure, and highlight them and bring them out and be able to demonstrate to your funding partners or to your customers or to whoever that you've got the information to let them know what is truly happening, not just what we want to happen
mm,
or what is scheduled to happen, but what is actually happening, and how can we rectify some of these issues. Really
mm,
highlighting the problem areas that the transit systems know exist, but sometimes are hard to quantify. And
right.
I think that's the advantage in the work that we do, is that we're able to help transit agencies express exactly what their performance is like, and that they're on top of significant problems that affect customers every day, such as ghost buses or missing buses, or
Mm,
ones that just don't show up at all, or then duplicate buses. There's so many problems, and I can't go into all of them here,
yeah.
but there are significant problems facing every agency, and it's a long held belief that every transit agency is unique, and that is true. But in many ways, they're so much alike that the problems remain the same.
And I think, transit agencies are getting used to this data still, right? I mean, they're still
Hmm.
realizing, what effect and how they can use this data best. Can you talk a little bit about how you're walking through transit agencies through that process and letting them know what kind of data is available and how they can, best use that data?
Hmm. Well, we've done a lot of work already, as you might imagine, with
Mhm.
transit agencies, and we've worked with them to help them understand uh, what it is that they have already. And I think this is the sort of, maybe some transit agencies know that they could do more, but they simply do not have access to the information that allows them to articulate uh, exactly what the problem is and how are they going to solve it. And
Right.
if they're going to solve it, what are the costs involved? What resources are we short of, or are we just underestimating the impact of accidents, emergency disruptions, detours, things like that, that the customer simply has no idea that's going on, but the transit system is very aware. So by exercising their experience in these areas, they can now look at that information on a historical basis and see where things have gone wrong in the past, and develop plans to mitigate that through the use of our add-on systems, as you will, that can show them, this is what happened the last time we had this situation unfold. Say it's, I don't know, an environmental incident, like living in Ottawa where we do, it's sometimes very snowy, and
Mhm.
the roads can get quite jammed, and of course that causes all kinds of schedule problems. So they have to have a plan in place to put in effect that will mitigate the effects of that incident, whatever it may be. And if they've had previous experience, then they learn from that and are able to implement a much better plan the next time that they're faced with such a thing.
A lot of agencies are kind of reevaluating service design and network planning, post-pandemic. What approaches or strategies has Strata 360 found most effective in helping agencies respond to changing travel patterns and rider behaviors?
Well, it's again, I think it's because we provide them with this environment in which they can learn more about their system and learn more about their customers too, and in terms of where they're going, what are the failover points, are we making the timed connections that we need to, so that riders can change modes from bus to rail or rail to bus, and have a smooth transition between the two, and make sure that the customers are informed throughout their trip. This
Mhm.
also, helps us harmonize not just our own transit system, but we live across the river from Quebec, and they have their own transportation system. So we try to also align with them as well, which is a pretty interesting concept and sometimes very difficult because you
Yeah.
have no real control over the other system. So you have to try and best manage yours to match theirs. And having this kind of data available to them allows them to do that and play with notions, play with what happens if we do this, what happens if we do that. So in that way, it helps them keep the customers informed. And part of what we do is to push that same data out to the customers in real time, so that their real time travel trips are um, efficient, and they work out as intended, and the customer is not disappointed.
Building into that process and kind of honing down a little bit into that stakeholder engagement, can you talk about how your company is involved in building consensus into the communities in supporting transit projects, operational changes, and those sorts of things?
Yeah, well, we take an approach where we're very much, I'll call it a backroom player. We're not there to get our name out, through that transit agency.
Hmm.
But at the same time, we have solutions and um, integration techniques that make sure that all of the information that the transit system has about their operation, whether it be vehicles, whether it be people, drivers, and customer patterns, is well known. So that all of this information can be used in advance when planning new
Hmm.
schedules. We change our schedules 3, 4 times a year here in Ottawa, so it's a fairly frequent thing. But we need to keep the customers informed, and I think that's really what a lot of transit agencies are facing is that customers expect interactions with the transit agency to be on a par with larger organizations today, such as
Right.
Apple or Amazon or companies like that. So they have to learn how to be as responsive as an organization that is, multiple times their size and is very focused on the customer. So it's bringing the transit agency up to a level that the customers expect, and giving them the tools that they need in today's age to provide that responsiveness, both to the internal organization so they can figure things out, and also to the customer so that they get a seamless experience.
Yeah. Well, Steve, thanks
And
again for, I'm sorry, did you want to add something?
I was just going to say, it's really a case of managing expectations and increasing the capability of the transit agency to instill within themselves a culture of creativity
Mhm.
and adopting new technology so that they get the best out of both the people and their existing investment in their technology, plus the investment in our products.
I was curious. Thanks again. I was going to say thanks again for taking the time to speak to me, and this is
Hmm.
really really good stuff. I mean, I'm curious because you have been in the industry for so long. Can you
Hmm.
talk a little bit about, how much the industry has evolved over your time and where you are now and how much data and information and these sorts of things can really help leverage a transit
Hmm.
agency much further past where it could have been 20, 30 years ago.
Hmm. Well, I first joined the transit organizations as a technical person working on their technology, both of a IT perspective and also um, the broader base of technology that's within transit. So it's understanding that end-to-end picture, which has evolved over the last 20 or 30 years
Mhm.
to where we are today. And, taking the knowledge that you've built, the business changes in a slower fashion than the technology. And
Right.
usually, when something's running well, they're not going to change it. So sometimes it's a conversation around it's time. It's time to jump forward, 5, 10, 15 years, or however far you might be behind, and try to get with the program, so to speak, and upgrade your technology, or at least wrap it in a particular way that it's able to be mined and used for the betterment of the organization. So I've seen a tremendous evolution of technology over the years. Is it better today? Oh, of course it is. But it used to be a much more, how can I say this, process-driven thing. But now it's the age of creativity. It's the age of invention,
Mm.
and tools like AI can help you improve so much. We're using them ourselves within our own organization, and we're building them into our sort of upcoming generation of tools as well. So it'll be even more easier to use the information that we've put together for you to mine that and to get the results that you're needing. Okay.
Yeah. And can you talk a little bit about that? I'd be remiss not to ask you about that.
Hmm.
The use of automation and that sort of thing. Obviously, there's a buzzword that people are a little afraid of, and then there's actuality of what AI can do, particularly in
Hmm.
the transit industry. Can you talk a little bit about, what kind of impact it could have and what sort of ways it could really, help transit agencies flourish?
Hmm. Well, AI is a wonderful thing. It's brought a whole new world. It's a whole new generation of people are now aware of technology much more so than they used to be.
Mhm.
They're using it for, I would say 60 to maybe 50, 60% are sort of trivial and nice drawings and weird things, which are wonderful.
Right, right.
But the mainstream, the main line is really where we're headed, and that's what we're following. Um, we will, like everybody else, we're looking to AI to help us and to help our clients. So that's what we're focused on right now. As I said, we're using it internally to great effect, and now we want to take that positive effect and bring it to our customers as well. And that also speaks to our customers in the sense that they themselves have to be prepared to take on that technology in a meaningful way so that they can themselves get the advantage, and they can also be very aware of what other vendors might be saying about the use of AI in their technology, because sometimes, yeah, it's a bit of a hype cycle with this, like any new product.
Yeah, absolutely.
uh, but it will stabilize and it will become a better, how can I say, a better assist to humankind, as it were, as its main mission is put out to be.
And kind of wrapping up and looking ahead, yeah, how much do you see all of these tools evolving and being able to move transit forward into the future? And what do you feel maybe the short term and the long term future of the industry may be?
Well, I think short term and long term, but short term, AI represents the banner that everybody's following. So for now, that is the trend that's having the most effect worldwide, not just
Absolutely.
transit. Are there particular impacts in transit? Remains to be seen, but it's like any other business. Be cautious. Don't jump at things that are, AI flashy stars and lights all over it. Just be sensible. It's like anything else you've ever bought in the past, but perhaps its impacts are a slight different ball of wax than in the past.
Right.
So get advice, talk to people who know the technology and can help you make that decision. Preferably people who are in the transit industry and have a good sense of what those problems are that you face every day and have done for decades. So that one is it's the one we're watching, and it's the one to watch for the time being. Going forward, well, that's a difficult thing to predict. I've never made any money predicting anything. So,
You'd be rich.
yeah, I would. Um, but I don't know. I think really is the biggest change I could see is the uptake of technology within transit. I mean, it's always been important. It's even more important these days than it's ever been. And so that transit systems must be aware of that and equip themselves and make sure that they have the people. Lord knows there are so many young people these days coming out of college that are fully versed in all of these technologies, and these
Mhm.
are the kind of people you want to try to encourage to join your organization. I'm passionate about transit, have been for well, a long time now, and I really missed it when I wasn't working in it.
Yeah.
So it's a great career, and I think that's what transit systems must do looking forward is make sure that they're equipped. Not just in the technology area, because the vehicles will change, everything will change, maintenance processes will change, even the streets will probably change. But be adaptive, be flexible, and make sure you're equipped to use all of the tools at your disposal to ensure your success. That's really what I would have to say.
Great. Well, Steve, thanks for the insightful conversation. I really appreciate it. Is there anything you'd like to add in closing?
Not particularly, but just invite people to look at our website. I'm sure there's going to be a link somewhere in this article.
Mhm.
And we invite you to come and read some of the stuff that we've got there. We do think about these problems a lot, and so we've got some resources, some articles, some white papers. Come visit us, and if you wish, you follow up and contact us and speak with anybody, even me.
Well, thanks again, Steve. I appreciate your time.
Now you're welcome, Alex. Thank you so much.
Thanks.